Hello, this is my final presentation, Nathan Myers. Today I will be talking about face, or the face negotiation theory. This is a theory I found to be really interesting because it deals with our self-image and what we think of ourselves and what we do to retain that image. And in this presentation, I will define this term, provide some references and examples, as well as talk about various aspects within the subject. My goal is to provide a better understanding of this theory and a concept of face in general. To be a little more detailed, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the term face. I'm going to define it from the book, and then in my own terms, talk a little bit about face work and about some various aspects of face. So let's get going. Alright, so the textbook definition of face is a metaphor for self-image that pervades all aspects of life. Now, my own definition is face is another term for self-image. Throughout life, when people's self-images are threatened or tarnished, they tend to defend their image by saving or restoring face. To do this, people will show certain behaviors that are referred to as face work, countermeasures to ensure their self-image is safe or recovered. And those things in particular, face work, face saving, and face restoration, I'm going to talk about those specifically. But yeah, I find it really interesting that whether we know it or not, we care so much about the image that we have for ourselves, either we created for ourselves or somebody gave to us, that we go to great lengths to protect that image. So yeah, I'll go on to the next thing. So there are three different types of face work. There's tact face work, solidarity face work, and approbation face work. These are three different ways of handling conflicts, or three different things that we do when we're trying to maintain our image. And the following definitions I'm going to give are from Professor Huang of, I can't say this, Sichuan University of Finance and Economics. And yeah, because I like what he says about it, and I think it would really help us to clarify what these terms mean and kind of get a better understanding of face work. So he defines tact face work. Tact face work is characterized by the effort to maximize the freedom of action of the learners and minimize the impositions that restrict their freedom of action. Thus, tact face work strategies often ask for suggestions and directions, avoid explicit directives, and use pleas and conventional indirectness. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the example shared in the textbook about the professor and the student talking about a final project, and some of the things that she does and he does when they're talking. The professor uses all three of these so well. The first one she uses is tact face work. She doesn't just come in and say, whoops, well, you don't have time for your project? That's too bad. She doesn't do that. She says, oh, well, what do you think is fair? Like, she opens the playing field. She gives him the sense that because she is really listening to him, which gives her more freedom to act and decide what's the best way to handle this conflict. Tact face work is a great way to start, a conflict management, especially when it comes to saving face or restoring face or keeping one's self-image. Because in this instance, it is important that she keeps her self-image as the professor, because it's not fair to anyone if she's just a pushover or is mean. That doesn't serve her, that doesn't serve him. So it's important to her to keep her dignity as a professor. So the second thing that she does, and that's a part of face work, is solidarity face work. Solidarity face work minimizes the differences and maximizes the commonalities between the teacher and the learners. Thus, strategies of solidarity face work tend to use informal or intimate language and emphasize the necessity to cooperate, similarities, shared fate, and mutual trust. Now, the word I want to point out here is empathize. The professor does a great job of this. She says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I knew you were sick at the beginning, and I know how hard it is to be a student. I've been there, and yeah, and like I'm a teacher, it's hard for me too. I have a lot of stuff, deadlines I gotta fix. That's commonalities. That's emphasizing. That's showing that his concerns aren't falling on deaf ears. That she really is listening to him, and that's so important when dealing with face work. And the third thing is approbation face work. Approbation face work is characterized by the effort to minimize blame and maximize praise of the teacher. Strategies of approbation tend to ignore or understate negative aspects of learners and to notice or exaggerate positive aspects of them. So the professor does this really well. And it's actually quite amazing that she does, because he insults her pretty bad in the way he says, well, the American system, we do this. Like, we're entitled to have changes to policy and to have things work out for us, which is so untrue. And on a side note, I feel like that's a sad entitlement that I feel like today's generation of America sometimes feels. But besides the point, it kind of insults her in saying, like, you don't know how it works here. Let me show you the ropes. Where she's a professor, she's been doing this for a while, and yeah, she's newer to America, but, the system's the same. And so, even with this, she praises Kevin, the student, for being a good student, for being a good learner, a good worker. She says that. She says, well, I know you can do it. I know you're a hard worker. And she does end up doing some different, I think she cuts down the time is the same, but she cuts down his page limit a little bit for his project. But she says, like, you're a hard worker and I know you'll get it done. Like, she says positive things about him, like, oh, I know you can do this. Like, instead of saying, like, well, I'm sorry you can't do this, but that's the deadline. She uses that to show that she's a professor who cares about her students. I thought that was really cool. Alright, so this is an example of face saving. This is from the TV show SpongeBob SquarePants. The character Squidward runs into his high school arch nemesis, as he calls him. And his arch nemesis, he's super rich, he's gotten everything he's ever wanted, super successful, and Squidward's been working at a fast food restaurant. Which Squidward lies about this in order to save face in front of his fellow student. So take a look.
So, I just took my private yacht across my private reef to my private heliport. It's the only way off my private island. Oh, shrimp! It's my arch rival from high school, William Francie's son. Have you ever seen me in my crusty crab uniform? On your lunch tray, any squiddy? Yes, hey, what you been up to? Oh, just succeeding in everything you failed in. You are no great shakes, William Fancy son. Anyone can be a big shot in a hit town like Bikini Bottom. Oh, is that so? Let's hear what you've accomplished since high school, Squiddy. Don't be intimidated, Squidward. Try to imagine him in his underwear. Oh no, he's hot! I'm, in food service. Oh, man. Don't tell me! You're a cashier! Ryan always makes it worse. I own a 5-star restaurant. Squidward, I had no idea you were such a success. That's right. And I would be honored if you would allow me to come to your restaurant tonight. Hot.
So that's an example. He lies about what he does to Squilliam in order to save face. He says, no, I'm not a fast food worker. I own a 5-star restaurant, so take that. So his face isn't, his self-image isn't tarnished. In fact, it's saved and even raised up a little bit, even though he's lying about it. So in this instance, that's what he does. And yeah, it's probably going to come back and bite him later, but in this instance, he saved his face by lying. And I find that to be interesting because that's something that people do on a regular basis. Now, they don't always lie. That's not the only way to save face, but I thought that was an interesting example. Here's another one about face restoration. So this is when your self-image is tarnished and what you do to restore that image you had before. So this is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. And Gilderoy Lockhart is a professor there who's just, he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he's trying to maintain this image that he's this amazing wizard. And he's a celebrity, everyone's obsessed with him. And so he starts this dueling club, and Professor Snape and him, another professor, get in a duel and to show, and he talks about how, you'll see, I'll show you.
Yes, sportingly agreed to help me with a short demonstration. Now, I don't want any of you youngsters to worry. You'll still have your potions master when I'm through with it. Never fear. One, two, three. Expelliarmus!
Do you think he's alright?
Who cares? An excellent idea to show them that, Professor Snape, but if you don't mind me saying, it was pretty obvious what you were about to do. And if I had wanted to stop you, it would have been only too easy. Perhaps it would be.
So there you go. He gets knocked down by Professor Snape. Obviously, it shows that he's incompetent. But what he does is he gets up and says, "Oh, great job. It was good you showed him that. But, of course, I knew you were going to do that. That was obvious. And if I really wanted to stop you, I could have done something. But I didn't. So, yeah, I'm awesome." So that's him restoring his tarnished self-image in that instance. Pretty funny example. But people do that kind of stuff. People say, "Oh, well, you know, I meant to do that." Or, you know, it's interesting. The things people will do to, like, preserve that image. They'll lie about it. They'll blame it on something else. And sometimes, like, you know, it doesn't have to be a lie, but a lot of times that is the way it works. It's so interesting what people do to save their reputation. In conclusion, I find the concept of face and the face negotiation theory to be a very interesting topic. Whether we know it or not, everyone has a self-image that either they have created for themselves or others have instilled that image upon us or them. And as we go through life, we all tend to try to keep this self-image in a positive light. We try to maintain our reputation, keep the status quo. We don't just let it go on naturally. We really try to maintain that image that we have, especially within conflict, which is really interesting to me. And I think it's really telling that about how much we care about that self-image and about us maintaining face. Well, anyways, that's my presentation. I'm grateful I was able to take this class, and I'm grateful that I was able to learn these things as I continue my pursuit of communication. Yeah, and this is my works cited, and I'm grateful for this class and all for all the things I learned. Thank you.